I just feel that the visual effects were neglected by choice, and the Blu-rays extras prove this. And you don't even need to go and watch them. You can just watch Jonas part 3 of his no CGI movie, where multiple times on these breakdowns, on this behind the scenes, on this stupid Blu-ray, you have blue screens that were removed, bad keying, we have blue edges, we actually see...
No, but just the nuance there, Hugo, is you mean blue screens in the B-roll.
Yes, on the B-roll. So
you don't mean blue screens
No. I'm talking about, yes.
Blue screens
B-roll
in the
was
B-roll.
composited, yes. The B-roll is composited to look like there was no blue screens there. It's really shameful that was made. And in fact, there's multiple parts as well where... the robotic arm, where that's covered by like a sheet of blue as well, so they can key it out. In multiple shots, they've desaturated that blue to gray so that it doesn't look like it's blue. It's just shameful behavior to try to pretend that there's no CG. And then, of course, the narrative of these documentaries, we all shot it for real. It's all practical. It's all shot. The whole thing, they just keep saying this word all the time. Anyone that buys this Blu-ray will never even think that there were VFX on this film. These making offs are not making offs. This is just marketing. I hope that this doesn't happen anymore, because it's really a shameful way of promoting or presenting a film.
Yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by Backlight. Backlight Creative enhances the entire creative project lifecycle. For pre-production, there's Celtics. For scriptwriting, beatboards, shot lists, and planning. And Backlight Gem, a narrative design platform for games and VR. For post-production, we've got F-Track Studio to manage creative projects with custom pipelines and reviews with CineSync and F-Track Review for high-res, real-time media collaboration. To manage your assets, connect your own storage to Iconic, a scalable cloud-based media asset management platform. You can learn more at backlight.co. And now on to the show.
Hi, Hugo.
Hi, Ian.
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 You want to go for a ride?
Yeah, sure.
Oh my God, Hugo and we are clearly the world's worst actors. I think Hugo's doing a much better job there. But hi, everybody. Welcome to the VFX Notes Podcast. I'm Ian Fales from Befores and Afters, and I'm joined by Hugo Guerra from Hugo's Desk. How's it going?
I'm good. I know, I understand. I guess maybe I went a bit too far this time. I guess I went the room, like I have the whole room is pink now. I have a pink shirt, I have everything is going on. Like I have everything. I am in Barbie land right now. I'm broadcasting from Barbie land directly.
You're still caught up in Barbie fever. Barbenheimer, Barbenheimer, whatever it is, fever. Obviously, today we're going to talk about Barbie and the visual effects in that film. But before we jump into the show, we always want to thank our sponsors, our Patreons, and everyone who likes and subscribes to us on YouTube. Hugo, we couldn't do this show without them, could we?
No, we couldn't. Thank you so much for the sponsors, of course, and the Patreons as well, also the members on YouTube as well. And never forget, if you want to support the channel, you can support the show. You can always either choose to support the Patreon of Before and Afters or the Patreon of Hugo's Desk. And yeah, we can't thank you enough. And I also wanted to shout out the lovely messages we've been getting lately. We've been having a lot of activity on YouTube, and a lot of people are leaving comments and telling. We also have been having a lot of newcomers to the show, like a lot of people just messaging saying, "Oh my God, I've found your podcast. I never heard about it. It's great. I really love it. I'm going to watch it all." So I think it's great. So if you're one of those newcomers, thank you so much for putting up with us. You now have 55 episodes to watch. Yeah, it's been great. It's been great to get all those lovely messages.
And there's a way, if you can't watch the video, you can actually just listen to us with the YouTube music app. from Google. So
Absolutely.
that's basically like listening to the audio version of this podcast, and we encourage people to do that as well.
Yeah.
Hugo, Barbie really took the world by storm in 2023.
Yep.
I have to say that I love the film. I've seen it 3 times, and I did get caught up in Barbie and the Oppenheimer release. We're obviously going to mostly talk about Barbie, but just to get a quick reflection on the film from you, what did you think?
Yeah, I watched the film twice. I watched it on IMAX the first time. It wasn't on IMAX. I mean, it was playing on an IMAX screen, but it is not IMAX. I think they released an IMAX version later, after it came out. I watched it right away, and then I went the second time with Anna to see it, and I don't know. I liked it. I did. I think I liked it the best the second time. I thought it was good. I'm really big. I must say one thing. I'm a huge fan of Greta Gerwig. I love her films, and I absolutely think she's one of the best directors right now directing. You know, Lady Bird is one of my favorite films, and Little Woman as well. And I was really, really looking forward to seeing this and to actually see what was going to happen, because I was kind of surprised after watching Lady Bird and Little Woman. I was surprised that she picked this as her next movie, because it's such a big blockbuster. I did like it, Ian, but I think, I don't know, I don't know if it was, I did enjoy it more the second time. I didn't really fall in love with the film. I thought the film was a bit too much, and it was a little bit, maybe, you know, all the singing, all the pink, it just was a bit too much for me. But I did, of course, I really appreciate the amazing message the film has, and the way that it transmits it, and the way that it's really picking up an icon from the 80s. And really, I mean, Barbie became really, really big on the 70s and 80s and 90s. And it's quite charming and quite incredible how Greta picked this icon from a toy, really, and made this really elusive, really strange, ironic film that has like all these hidden messages of, you know, of feminism and masculinity, and the battle between women and men, and the whole corporate side as well. And it jokes about itself as well, the marketing side of it. It's really clever. The film is super, super clever, and I couldn't expect anything else from Greta. Really, she is amazing, and so the film is really intelligent. But I think I just struggled a bit the first time, but I did enjoy it best in the second time for sure.
I'm not quite sure what you didn't like about it, because you basically said
well, it's been a long. I'll be honest, like, it's been a long time that I watched the film, and because I watched it at the time when it came out, and the thing with this is that at the time, I just thought it was a bit too much. I thought it was too loud, too many singing, and too many songs, and I don't think I got it the first time. I don't think I really completely got this message and this distortion of reality that it had, all this ironic side of it, and all this kind of connection with the real world. I was just really not into it, really, and I don't know why had that happen. I really enjoyed it much more the second time, but I must say this is difficult for me to say. I feel like this film really got ruined for me, because I was so upset about the entire shenanigan, about the visual effects and about the practical, and we're going to talk a lot about that I really think it's one of those situations where the film was ruined for me because of that. I think the film, if it was a normal release, and if it didn't have any of this, what I would say, like this stink on top of it, I think I would have appreciated the film more. But it's one of those situations where I can't let it go, and I can't forget all those problems and those things that happened with Warner Bros. Release. And I don't know, the film loses a lot with me because of that. So I do think in a normal circumstance, I probably would have liked it more. And I know I'm not supposed to not like or like a film because of the external factors that are happening on a film. But that happened to me this time. And usually doesn't happen. And so so let's just put this straight. Really like the film. I love Greta's as the director. I just couldn't really get too invested because of all of this extra noise around the film. That's at least my view. But I know you've really liked it, and you have a very different perspective on that side, I guess, don't you? So,
well, I often talk about my when we review a film on here on VFX Notes, I often talk about the experience.
yeah,
And the experience with this film was that I went to see it with my partner Sue
yeah,
in a big cinema on the opening weekend, where everyone dressed up. I mean, we didn't, but everyone, lots of people dressed up, and they just bought so much candy and food. I think that was some sort of license to do that with Barbie for some reason. And as you say, not many people knew what the actual plot was.
No.
You know, they kind of guessed it was a satirical take based on the trailers, but that was Warner Brothers' plan with this film, was to be like, well, what actually is this, and how are they in the real world, but also Barbie land? And because I saw it for the first time with Sue, and we just loved it. We just thought it hit the patriarchy message correctly. It hit the feminism message correctly.
Yeah.
Plus, it's actually a rollicking good film, as in it doesn't stop, basically. You know, and I like the music. I like the singing. I like the world building of it. I thought, you know, the standout character was actually Ryan Gosling with Ken. But Margot Robbie was brilliant. And as were a lot of the supporting actors. Michael Cera, I think, also stole the show a little bit.
It was so funny.
But that's what I mean by my experience. I was swept up by Barbenheimer, and this was just part of it. And then, you know, you watch the film and you go, whoa, that was amazing. Then I think about the visual effects because I've got to try and cover the film. And then I go and see it again a couple of times and just see there's a lot more in it than you realize as well. You know, like there's a whole Will Ferrell thing going on. Like you sort of forget about that sometimes later on.
The whole corporate side of it, and of incorporating the corporate side of Mattel into the whole film. Yeah, it's really smart. That's what I was saying. The film is incredibly smart, and I think the more you see it, the more you discover. And the film is going to really test. I think the film is going to become a very beloved film over the next few years, and it's probably going to even become a cult film. I mean, the film was a huge success, of course, but I think you're absolutely right. No one knew what we were going to into it. Like, I mean, some people thought it was going to be a kids' film, and of course, because Greta Gerwig was involved, people thought it can't just be that. It has to have some kind of subversive thing on the top of it. But we were not sure because they were, you know, Warner Bros. Was very good with the trailers. They did not show anything. They kind of like were with the perfect tone with the. In fact, I don't believe the trailers, the first ones at least, never even shown the real world. They only showed Barbie Land. So I think
the first trailers was the Dawn of Man sequence, actually.
Yeah,
so it was even more subversive and what the hell is this? And oh my God, they shot that just for the trailer. And of course it's in the film.
On the film,
you know?
I also think that there's another thing also. You know, I obviously didn't really play with Barbies, and Barbies have no connection to me whatsoever. I didn't even had friends that played with Barbies. I don't know, like Barbie was never a thing for me at all. And I'll be honest, like it's quite fascinating how it was a complete forgotten thing. You know, of course, not for kids. Of course, for kids is really important. And if you go to children's TV, you see a lot of shows even today with Barbie, really badly, poorly made CG films, but they look terrible. But I think for the audience, for the grown-up audience, this, you know, it was really a forgotten thing. It was a forgotten franchise. So it's really impressive how it came back. You know, so yeah.
I guess you're right, except in some ways the film's not about Barbie at all.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
And that's why clearly it resonates with so many people. They get the message, and past Me Too, it's something else about the control of the world by men, you know. And it's also taking the piss out of Mattel and Barbie itself, right? Like I can't believe Mattel allowed some stuff that is in this film, but kudos to them for allowing it, because they get that people can laugh at it, and
Yeah, absolutely.
and it is laughable how kind of dolls and Barbie and the way that infiltrated young women's lives has become. I think it's got better, although I'm not an expert in like recent Barbie releases. But that's basically what they were aiming to do, and they did it. And I just love that Mattel didn't seem to say don't. That's super
that's
cool,
right.
right?
And actually, in fact, like the production designer and interviews on the behind the scenes and everything, they talk a lot about that they went to the archives of Mattel and they went back and checked all those dolls. And there's a lot of lore of Mattel and Barbies. And in fact, like I was watching the film with Anna, and Anna recognized some of the dresses and recognized some of the dolls from her time as a child as well. And I have friends that have told me the same thing. There's a lot of Easter eggs on the film. There's a lot of lore on the film that I have no clue what it is. But, I think every single dress, every single thing is an ode to something else. And it's really smart because they do show the chauvinistic nature of the Barbies and the ones with big breasts and the ones with TV monitors and cameras. It's just like, it's fascinating how they're joking to themselves. But I think that's the way to go, really. Like it's really kudos to Mattel for letting that happen, because that's the way you evolve, and that's really the way that you can move the company forward and really move the brand forward, and not really debate what happened, because what happened, that's it. Like, we can't really do anything about it. That was the way the world was, and we can't really judge the world from the 70s, 80s, and 90s through the lenses of today. But we can at least joke on it, and that's why the film is brilliant on that side, because it really jokes really well. And it makes like a laughing stock of all those things about the machism and the chauvinistic and the battle between men and women. And it's just like, it's really deep. It's super deep and really super interesting,
Which is maybe something that's kind of amazing about this film, is that somehow they managed to get a 4-quarter film, or however they've described those films, that all the age groups and all the sexes and all the demographics loved it, by being a film that we understood but that girls would still go and enjoy. Yeah. Because it's still a good message, and does have some cutesy stuff in it, and
exactly,
fun stuff, and the songs and Dua Lipa, and like all the things are in there. It's like a mashup of really cool ideas. And as I understand it, it was long in development. There were different people attached and different ideas. There was probably always a satirical angle to it. Like, you could never just do a straight up Barbie film, like a G.I. Joe film or something.
I don't know, Ian. I think the more I watch the movie, and I bought the Blu-ray. Here it is, very glinty Blu-ray. We'll talk about the Blu-ray in a second. That's why I have it here, because I have some thoughts about it. But I want to see it again, and I think the film grows on me more and more and more. And I don't know, like I feel like I like that there is an opportunity to. We always talk about on the show that, it's a shame that sometimes, there's not so much creativity in cinema, and sometimes, things look a bit samey, and some films look repeated, especially certain superhero movies. And it's really fascinating that this year we had quite a lot of the opposite. We had a lot of creativity on display that was successful. And Barbie is a super creative movie, and which I really have to put the hat out to Warner Bros. By even taking the jump to do something like this, because this is a huge risk, like it was not really a sure thing that it was going to be a success, because, Barbie is like a dormant franchise really for the adult world. And so, and I'm really happy that Greta Gerwig now has this huge success on her back, and I hope she does many movies to come, because she's so talented. I know that she's doing Snow White, as I believe, now next. That's her next movie, is Snow White.
Oh, is it Snow White? I thought it was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Well, Snow. Well, I mean, she's the right. According to Wikipedia, she's the writer of Snow White. Now, I'm not sure.
Oh,
It doesn't
okay.
say she's
Interesting.
directing it, so maybe there's a second movie there. I don't know. But
Hmm.
yeah, I really hope that they give her more and more because this was a huge success, not only financially but also critically, and even financially. I mean, she is now the highest grossing female director ever, so which is great. We want to see more Barbies and more Oppenheimers and more fresh things, like fresh movies, movies
Yes.
that bring something to the forefront.
I think you're channeling to that in 2023, Barbenheimer was the antidote
Yeah.
to superhero fatigue, which I was probably not really going along with as much as everyone was saying, but I'm probably wrong about that. There certainly was a Marvel and DC fatigue last year, and part of that was probably just so much content from streaming, but also movies. And so Barbie and Oppenheimer represented original content that still made, up to $1 billion. I mean, Barbie made more, and Oppenheimer's getting close, I think. But you want more of that because you can get sick of those big movies, even though we also crave them. So
but there is definitely something that needs to be reworked with the Marvel and DC comic, especially now that Aquaman was kind of like came and went, Flash as well, and Madam Web now came and went, no one cared. I think people are really fatigued and people just don't care. No one goes and sees them, no one really talks about it, no one just wants to know about it, and I think they need to like pause a bit and reconvene and really rethink their strategy. I think
pause a bit.
Yeah, because it's too much. It's too much. There's too much content and too many films, and it becomes diluted. That's the problem, and that's why Barbie and Oppenheimer worked so well last year, because they're super strong, completely original ideas from very strong directors. And look at the Oscars, look at the nominations. They are up there, tat to tat, like almost tied in nominations, which is impressive. Of course, we have even more creativity there. We have Poor Things as well, with a bunch of nominations as well. So it's a really, I think 2023 is becoming very for me personally, with Zone of Interest, which is my famous film of the year by far. Zone of Interest is absolutely outstanding, with Poor Things and Barbie and Oppenheimer and Ferrari, and I think 2023 is going to become probably one of the most impressive years that we had in a long time, because it is very creative and a lot of fresh stuff. I know we had superhero fatigue, but there was a breath of fresh air from a lot of directions, a lot of movies that came out, and a lot of unexpected successes, as well. So I wasn't really expecting Barbie or Oppenheimer to be a success, to be honest.
I agree. Okay, let's pivot now to the look of Barbie.
Yeah.
And you can't not talk about the look of Barbie and involve the visual effects.
Yeah.
But here's, of course, what happened. Everyone watching this will know that at some point in the marketing for this film, there was a big decision made to push what was practical, i.e. what they filmed, what the actors interacted with. And by the way, I want to make it clear that production design and the cinematography and the costumes and the acting on Barbie were all incredible.
Yeah.
And absolutely suited the style of the film that needed to be made, which was, especially for Barbie Land, this sort of miniaturized toy world. And so ultimately, Hugo, they were shooting on sound stages in London mostly, for Barbie Land, because, they had to create the world. And that was, sets were very suitable for that. Yeah. Basically.
And really hats off to the DOP, Rodrigo Prieto, really, really good DOP, has been multiple times nominated, and of course he's famously the DOP of Amor Perros and 8 Mile. 8 Mile is just a beautiful piece of cinematography. 21 Grams as well, and Brokeback Mountain, Babel, and Wall Street, and Argo, and just the list just goes on and on and on. The Irishman, and And this year with 2 films, Killer of the Flower Moon and Barbie at the same time, which is really impressive. So I think Rodrigo Prieto did an amazing job, very different from all the other films that he's made. You know, if you look at the grittiness of 8 Mile and then you look at this, it is really an hallmark from a really good DOP to try to kind of like capitalize on this plasticity that Mattel and the toys come to life. And the choice of making the sets like the early 20s and 30s and 40s, like these kind of like manual sets and real sets, was brilliant. It was. We have a lot to talk about that, of course, because it's not as simple as it seems, and that is one of the things that I have to criticize the film the most about the way that it's been broadcasted to the world, how it was then, how it was made. But the set design and the idea from the beginning is brilliant. The way of doing these sets with layers and the wood pieces and the actual real living things that rotate behind the sets, and like really an hallmark to, even if you go back to Melee and the Voyage to the Moon and those kind of films, because it's like those kind of sets, like really plastic, woody made type of sets, together with all the props from Barbie as well, with all the toys and everything. So the idea is brilliant. The execution, though, is what I have to talk to you about, because the execution is really strange for me, at least personally, because they did went and shot all of it. They did shoot it all for real. They did shoot it on these sound stages. They did shoot it, a lot of it on LED. But something happened somewhere along the line of the production where most of it was replaced in CG. And I don't know exactly what happened. I don't know exactly how that happened. Not all of it. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but I just wanted to do a bit of forensic about this, because the messaging of this film pivoted and changed, and it's still changing. It's still changing with the fact that we have that's why I brought the Blu-ray, because I don't know if you've seen these behind the scenes. Like there's 5 documentaries inside this thing. Not a word about VFX, by the way, but this thing is really strange, because what they show here is not really what happened. And I just wanted to talk about this and do a bit of forensic digging about this,
Obviously you're correct, and about how big a deal visual effects became in the film, yet did not get discussed in a big way.
Yeah.
But Hugo, I'm sort of the mind to think that all of that practical photography we've talked about, sets and painted backdrops and translights, and also, they built a bunch of miniatures.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
To inform set building and visual effects. I actually have on the mind that they were always going to do heaps of Barbie Land with visual effects. Like Glenn Pratt, the overall visual effects supervisor, who's from Framestore, and Framestore was the main vendor on this. I mean, he's involved super early on. And so I don't think you're not actually saying this, but I think that's one of the slight nuances, things that people are getting a bit wrong about the Barbie stuff. In that, they did all this shooting, they did all this set building with the plan was always to extend stuff, which is actually what happens on most films.
Yep, that's fine.
The thing that is insane is that they basically blanketly lied or kept out the information about how much computer graphics and visual effects work is done. And so the whole thing about it's interesting. I know I'm getting myself caught up in knots here, but what I'm getting at is I think Warner Brothers is worried that people think, we failed and had to do it all in visual effects. Whereas that's actually not what happened at all. Yeah. It was actually all pre-planned to have this extensive visual effects work done, especially since they were shooting in the volume for some shots, and they used blue screen and grey screen. So it's actually part of the photography. And so I guess that's what incenses me, that it's almost considered we failed, so we did use visual effects. Well, no, you just used it well.
I guess
what I
you're
really
right.
want to
I
say.
guess probably you're right. Probably it is why they hid that fact. But I this is difficult for me because I am so pissed at this thing. Like I'm so pissed at Warner Bros. And so pissed about this film because I love this director and I think that she deserved better. And I just feel like this entire message is just so wrong. As the audience knows, I'm a Visual Effects Society member, and because I'm a Visual Effects Society member, as a RU as well, we get previewed to breakdowns and showreels that are not public. So when we are judging and on the Genji events, and also when we're voting, we get to see showreels that never came out. And I've seen the original showreels that came out for Barbie. You've seen them as well, and I've also now seen the edited showreels that came out from Framestore that is on YouTube right now. Framestore was allowed to, thank God they were allowed at least to show something, but they showed like a very, very, very simplified showreel of the original showreel I've seen at the Visual Effects Society. And the Visual Effects Society showreel has a narrator explaining what they did, and multiple times during that narration, they mentioned that we were supposed to shoot this entire thing for real, and then we ended up replacing it 90% in CG to try to tweak and try to bring the vision more alive. And that's fine, I understand that because they probably shot it and they thought, it would be so cool if it would look even better. And that's fine. Let's construct something that looks even better. And here comes CG and visual effects to help and give a hand to make it even more looking like the 1930s, so it looks even more like miniatures and it looks even more. I think what happened here is that yes, you're right, they probably always thought that they were going to do that, and maybe even at some moment during the creative process they've decided to double down on it and make it even more miniature and even more. And of course you need visual effects for that. You can't really go and reshoot it again, and you can't shoot it again, and there's limitations on the LED, and there's limitations of the soundstage you can make it. You can't really do everything. It's not possible. That's why this film has 600 visual effects shots. But what I'm really pissed about, Ian, is that there is a breakdown at Framestore's YouTube channel that is not the same breakdown that I saw in the Visual Effects Society. It is a heavily redacted. This is for me like a redacted document. When you see the
which
black
one do you
lines.
say is redacted?
The one that is on YouTube right now. The one on YouTube is missing a bunch of stuff.
I don't want to interrupt you. The one that
Yes.
Framestore was allowed to publish is clearly a Warner Brothers thing, where we don't want you to show all the visual effects work, but we want to somehow concentrate on the miniaturization of Barbie. And it's like this concession. Okay, you did a lot of CG and visual effects work, but we also did build these miniatures, by the production design team. So can you show that as well? And so I know what you're getting at, Hugo, but I wouldn't even call that the visual effects breakdown from Framestore.
But there's no other one. That's the one.
I know.
There's nothing else.
They haven't been allowed to release it.
They will never be allowed to release it. That's the problem. They will never be allowed to release it. And this is my problem with this, because that's a redacted. There are shots, there are shots on the other one, because I've seen it multiple times. There are shots on the other one that have been edited and changed on this new one. Like, the problem with this for me is that this should not be happening. Why is this happening? Why are we redacting showreels? Why are we even having this conversation? Because the general audience, I really, really think that the general audience is not dumb and not stupid. I think everyone would have understood if they used visual effects. How many films get loved and praised because of visual effects? We just got one just recently. Both The Creator and both Guardian Galaxy are loved by the public. No one is even upset that there's visual effects on it. So this choice of the way that they wanted to hide certain things and show other things and not show other things is just really, really wrong. I think this is really wrong. I think they shouldn't lie, and they shouldn't really hide the work, the amazing work of these artists, like this. And I will continue to complain about this until I'm heard or until someone shuts up, and brings down the show or something. I don't know.
Absolutely. One of the challenges is Hugo and I are very close to this. So if you're coming to the VFX Notes this episode without a lot of watching of the other ones. We've talked about this quite in detail.
We started talking about this on episode 2.
Yeah.
With Fast and Furious 9. With Fast and Furious 9.
Let's backtrack a little bit, because just to give a bigger sense here, there is something like 1,300 visual effects shots in the film.
Yeah.
And Framestore is the main vendor. There's others, including UPP, Chicken Bone, Powerhouse, and Fuse Effects. Now, what kind of happened with this film? And it happens a lot with Warner Brothers films. They are one of the studios that tends to not promote the visual effects much, or they often have embargoes for covering visual effects work. Totally fine. We've come to this discussion before, Hugo, where I've sort of said, look, I kind of get it. Sometimes the filmmakers want you to just enjoy the film, not think about how they did the visual effects work. The big thing that happened, the escalating incident with Barbie, was a Guardian article after release, I think, that talked about and had a few quotes from the production designer, which I actually wonder, sometimes I feel like those quotes were actually in the production notes, but I'm not sure on that. They weren't actually, an interview that the production designer had done. Saying, and the article also, the gist of it being, oh, isn't it great that we're going back to old school filmmaking and practical effects? The hilarious bit was that they used an image of Ken and Barbie in the Barbie car against a blue screen.
I know.
So everyone in visual effects thought that was just hilarious and absurd.
Yeah.
And then, it just escalated from there, Hugo, didn't it?
I mean, because of that article, because of the tweet, I made a tweet at the time. Because of that article, I was invited to do an article about it, and I wrote an article for the Creative Blog website about this same problem. Then I even did a video about it. And then I know Jonas did a bunch of videos that show this as well. And I think that, like you said, we've been talking about this, since episode 2. We started this discussion in Fast and Furious 9. And I think, and we've been almost talking about this on almost every episode, because almost every production has this problem, and with some exceptions. I think that the escalation, the problem with this is that no one on production design is probably really said that the idea was not to use CG. Probably no one in the production, probably the director, no one anywhere.
Yeah,
these are just
that quote's that's not out there.
I know. And even when you look at the behind the scenes on this really, really idiotic Blu-ray, this Blu-ray is terrible. The special edition, it's one of the worst special editions I've ever seen in my life, and to a point that I regret buying it, and I wish that I returned it, because the behind the scenes are so bad. Now, the only moment to talk about CGI on this entire 5 documentaries is there is a moment that Will Ferrell mentions to camera saying, "Oh, it's so cool, we didn't use any CGI." He says this sentence, but to be fair on him, he was talking about the bike section where they're on the bike, and that is actually a real set. So I think, again, misquoting I'm not going to say that Will Ferrell said that there was no CGI on the film, because I know for a fact that the boardroom scene, there's CGI outside, because it's windows and there's matte paintings there and CG outside. Even the CG car that comes out and he's chasing, that's a CG car as well, just outside. So he, of course, he knows there's CG on the film. But the escalation problem is that article came out, Warner Bros. Did nothing about it. The film production did nothing about it. No one did nothing about it. It's still live. The Guardian didn't do anything about it. They didn't answer. Multiple people sent letters. Multiple people tweeted about it. No one replied. No one cared. It's still up. And it still says on the masthead of the article that Barbie and Oppenheimer are like the 1920s, is all back again, and people are fatigued with CG. And this is really damaging to the audience, because I can guarantee you, we've had this conversation so many times, so tired of saying the same thing, but like I can guarantee the mainstream people, people watch these things and they really think that it was all shot for real, and they really think that there's no visual effects done. And then because the showreel is not even allowed to be out, Not only the Framestore showreel is not out, but then UPP is told by the studio to put it out of YouTube as well. It's been removed from YouTube. And they even have tweets where they say and they apologize to the audience that they had to take it out. And so this is just disgraceful. I feel like this is a disgraceful way of doing it. And you're right. Warner Bros. Is the worst. They've always been the worst. They suck. Warner Bros. Suck. I'm here on the record saying that. They just are the worst on these things. And they've done this so many times now.
One of the challenges with the film is that so many people went to see it and just enjoyed the film.
Yeah.
There's sometimes the studios, as I believe, and some of the filmmakers as well, think that if you share too much about the creation of the film, that it will impact who goes, but also the feelings about the film. I actually think it's wrong.
Yeah.
I always give this example of Mad Max Fury Road, where people love the film, then they saw all the behind-the-scenes stunt work and thought, oh my God, look what they filmed for real. Then they saw all the visual effects work and
they
went,
were blown away.
Oh my God, look how much they took it further.
Yeah.
One of the challenges here was that for many months, Framestore was not allowed to talk about their work on the film. Of course, I wanted to write an article. And it wasn't until the View conference in October in Turin that I got to present an interview I'd done with Glenn as video. And then we also showed this breakdown, which I don't think is ever going to be shown anywhere else
it's
ever
amazing.
again.
It's an amazing breakdown.
And it was incredible. And then I was allowed to publish a story, not with any visual effects images or behind the scenes, really. And then a bunch of other outlets have also been allowed to. So in the niche area of visual effects coverage of the film, we've been allowed to talk about it. And oh my God, we should talk about some of this work in particular. Things like the virtual production side of Barbie are incredible. Things like the world building of Barbie are incredible.
I know.
And then the invisible effects, seamless stuff is also really great. We will get to that.
So we'll talk about it now. Like, I don't want to continue. I only have one more thing to say about this, and I don't want this podcast to be the Hugo Rant podcast, because that's not really my point of this. And you know me, I'm just a bit upset about these things, but it will go on. But I really want to talk about the VFX, because the work is outstanding, and not just the VFX, the practical effects, everything together. I just feel like if they would have done like you said, like Mad Max, that was a great story. You know, the way that it was done. James Gunn does this brilliantly with all his films. You know, where they show everything, and people still go and see the movie. You know, there's no connection between not seeing it and seeing it. And I just feel that this was a perfect opportunity to show everything, because this is the perfect showcase. This film is the perfect showcase of how we used to promote films. Practical and visual effects, living in harmony, looking seamless, amazing. And this story, this amazing film that is like no other, the look of the film is unique. And I don't think I've ever seen a film like this. This film would have been the perfect poster boy or poster girl, I guess, a perfect poster girl to showcase this both sides of the industry, and both. I just feel that the visual effects were neglected by choice, and the Blu-rays extras prove this. And you don't even need to go and watch them. You can just watch Jonas part 3 of his no-CGI movie, where multiple times on these breakdowns, on this behind the scenes, on this stupid Blu-ray, you have blue screens that were removed, bad keying, we have blue edges, we actually see...
No, but just the nuance there, Hugo, is you mean blue screens in the B-roll.
Yes, on the B-roll.
So you don't mean blue screens.
No. I'm talking about. Sorry, yes.
Blue screens
B-roll
in the
was
B-roll.
composited. Yes, the B-roll is composited to look like there was no blue screens there, to a point that there are multiple shots where you see the B-roll footage, and there's actually a small screen, which is the video assist of the cameraman, and on the camera video assist you see the blue screen, and then you look at the shot and there's no blue screen there because they removed it on a really bad keying. There's multiple parts of that on this Blu-ray. It's really shameful that was made, and in fact there's multiple parts as well where the robotic arm where they have multiple of these sets where they have the rocket and also the airplane and also like it's the rocket and it's something else that they do. That's covered by like a sheet of blue as well, so they can key it out. In multiple shots, they've desaturated that blue to gray so that it doesn't look like it's blue. There's other shots also that desaturated it like that. It's just shameful behavior to try to pretend that there's no CG. And then, of course, the narrative of these documentaries, we all shot it for real. It's all practical. It's all shot. The whole thing, they just keep saying this word all the time. Anyone that buys this Blu-ray will never even think that there were VFX on this film. And I just think that that's a shameful way of promoting a film. These making offs are not making offs. This is just marketing bullshit. It's just trash. I hope that this doesn't happen anymore because it's really a shameful way of promoting or presenting a film.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the studios have a bit of form with de-spilling and desaturating, saturating blue screens, green screens in behind-the-scenes photos or B-roll. I think the argument sometimes is they're fitting into some sort of color gamut of their featurette is wrong, right? Like doing it to like go, oh, you just shot that all on a blue screen. And they're trying to hide it. And the thing that you've talked about and then Jonas showcased in the no-CGI things is great because it's making people aware of what they're doing. It sucks that it happens, but I'm kind of like mini positive about the fact that now people go, oh, is that what they've been doing? And I think if you look back at a history of featurettes, you're going to see the same sort of thing being done. So it's kind of nice in a way that it's been revealed now. Because I was like, I'm going to have to admit this right here and now. I secretly keep a small database of behind-the-scenes photos and featurettes where I notice this desaturation, despilling happening. And, I mean, the problem is, Hugo, I'm probably just not surprised enough about it anymore.
Yeah, no.
But the Barbie thing was great that it was being showcased. So
yeah, and I the same way that I keep a database and a database of showreels that show up on the web and then they vanish without a trace. And in fact, the one that happened, the last one that has to do with Barbie is UPP's showreel, which was showcasing the CG car and all the CG that happened on the real world sections of the film, because there's a lot of invisible visual effects on the real world parts of the film. Yeah. And OPP had this amazing showreel, which I'm so happy that I've downloaded it the day that it came out, because now I'm used to whenever something comes out and gets dropped on YouTube, I just download it right away, because I know multiple showreels and multiple films have been removed from YouTube. You can always see by looking back at some articles from some really big websites sometimes, and the video is missing from the article. This happens a lot from the studios, which is a shame. Yeah. So I'm keeping a record of that. I have a lot of those videos, a lot of them.
The outcome of all of this is, of course, kind of interesting because, as we all know, Oppenheimer didn't get nominated for a visual effects Oscar. Barbie didn't. Now, arguably, Barbie has less impactful visual effects. Obviously, Oppenheimer only has a few visual effects, so that's possibly one reason. But we've argued, at least with Oppenheimer, that the fact that the CG was downplayed possibly is one of the reasons why their peers in the industry were not so keen to present it, for visual effects. I actually think the downplaying of the visual effects here meant that we didn't get an opportunity to celebrate Framestore's incredible work and possibly them to showcase, supporting visual effects at the VS Awards or even at the Oscars. Because I actually think Barbie is the perfect use of visual effects. Like, forget about the practical digital divide. It's like perfectly used. There are times when you need more crowd in Barbieland. Well, go and shoot mocap of the actors or go and shoot them against blue screen and put them in. That's what Framestore did.
Of course. I know. And I definitely agree with you. I think there's I do think personally there's a backlash as well going on, because the fact, I know Barbie, I really, Barbie has been nominated for 12 Oscars. Usually the films that get nominated for 12 Oscars, they pull all of them, just the same way Titanic did that, and Lord of the Rings did that as well. I found that it's strange that it didn't get nominated for visual effects, because when a film is the best picture and has the best cinematography and the best editing and the best acting and the best story and everything, then the visual effects are also the best. And so it's like, it is, I do think it's a backlash. And I felt that backlash on the Visual Effects Society, because the Visual Effects Society's nominations, Barbie had these stunning breakdowns that were shown there, and it didn't get nominated. And I really think it didn't get nominated because probably a lot of people thought, man, no, I'm not going to support this.
Well,
I feel I think there's a bit of a backlash for sure.
Some of that is probably true, but also in how outwardly Framestore could show their work.
Yeah.
Is that people are not aware of how much was done.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, let's talk about that, Hugo. One of the big things on this film, which is clearly capitalizing on the big changes that have been happening in the past 5-6 years, is virtual production.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now,
stunning
basically,
part.
It comes into visual effects now, really, because, for one thing, Framestore has a Viz team that's doing a lot of this virtual production, pre-Viz, but then any on-LED stage work, they're also part of that. And then it's helping to inform the visual effects work later. That virtual production stuff was used in many different ways. Say, working out how they would stage scenes with the Barbie's car, and, how to do fun kind of travelogue, travel scenes as well. But then also, Hugo, in one of my favourite scenes, which is the Dawn of Man one. I mean, we really should talk about it.
Yes.
That was super cool. And interestingly, choosing Dawn of Man is so funny because, of course, that was an amazing rear projection, or front projection, technique from Kubrick, then used on an old school film, Barbie, but really using the most latest technology. The irony is kind of there, but also the execution was amazing.
Yeah, it was really funny as well, because the cool thing about this is that probably a lot of people have, a lot of people think, oh, the old school techniques were really cool and everything. And the funny thing is that Stanley Kubrick was known for being a pioneer on every single piece of technology that he could put his hands on. And in fact, at the end of his life in the 90s, in the late 90s, he was already editing digitally on computers. He was like blown away by Amigas and editing bays and editing stations and digital videos and video cameras and everything like that. He was a big tech buff. And so at the time, in the 60s, in the late 60s, when 66, I believe, 2001 was shot, that was the highest of the technology they could do at the time, which was the front projection, rear projection that he uses on many of these movies. And so it's fascinating. It's beautiful that Greta is chosen to do an homage, like a full homage to 2001, with the technology that probably if Kubrick was alive would be using now. And it's just not just an homage, but just a brilliant nod to probably an influential director that I'm sure that she loves, and that's probably why they put this, because the sequence is very, very well achieved. Almost shot to shot is a match to the real one.
Yeah.
And it's just brilliant. It's absolutely
brilliant. And uses all the techniques, right? There's some set building there. There's virtual production LED stage work from Lux Machina. There's Framestore's involvement in a big way. There's digital sets as part of that, and compositing and digital Barbie, for one of the scenes, right? So
when it's like the doll,
there's just so many different techniques, even just used in that opening sequence, and that's just the Dawn of Man stuff, right? The other virtual production stuff was more, I think, in terms of using it for filming, Margot Robbie and filming a car and getting good light interaction.
Yeah.
Like, in the end, I think they did a lot of those car scenes by shooting the car on an LED stage set and then extending the background in very traditional ways.
Yeah. The sets, you're talking about the shots that she's going through the city, and also she arrives to the, the shots behind when she's like waving at everyone. The cool thing about this is that the LED screen is showcasing like a very rudimentary version of the render. I'm assuming it's like a pre-visualization version, or like a simplified version of what we then end up having on the film, but it does match up, like the buildings, positions, and things are kind of matched up, but of course then it was completely rotoscoped and completely replaced, like, so it's I promise this is the last time I'm going to talk about this, but that is yet another thing that on the behind the scenes on this film, on this Blu-ray, and also behind the scenes that you on YouTube, they really edit these featurettes together to a way to kind of pretend that the LED was used as it was, because the way they shoot it is they show the LED moments on a very, very tight angle or a very quick way, and then they cut right away to the final shot, and then they cut back to just the car, then they cut back just to the close-up. And so the way it's edited on these behind the scenes, it makes it look like the LED was what they used. And because the breakdown where they replace the whole thing with CG, the one from Framestore, is not public. And so, again, I think that it has to do with this message that we already spoke. I don't want to go back to that conversation, but that it is so easy for this to be misunderstood, because if you really look quick, the LED looks fine. Like, if you look quickly, if you don't look into detail, and I think that's why it kind of like makes it look like it is the final shot. But then if you pause, you see, oh no, well, that building is not there, and the person is missing, and this is missing, and that is missing. So yeah, they did an amazing job there. Yeah.
But of course, what Framestore had to do is actually very normal in terms of visual effects workflow. They've shot some live action. It might have a partial set. It might have a blue screen. It might have an LED wall. You've got to make the scene, and as the film and edit progresses, Greta and the team are going, well, we need to really do some world building here, and so they take everything they can get, including live action sets. And one thing they've made a big deal of is the miniatures or small scale things that were built and then photogrammetried, by the team, and then Framestore building CG models. Like, I don't see that as a failure or even a success. It's kind of just like a normal part of how these films get made now. And that's what I think wasn't able to be properly discussed. It actually totally works, because it means that the scale umbrellas or scale buildings look a bit miniaturized, which is exactly the production design. That's the point of them. And
also
other films,
and also like you get that artistic input from the production design, because you know, like the production designers, they're very, especially production design in this film, they've been doing production design for a long time. That's their craft. It's all handmade. It gets all that kind of like little details of hand craftsmanship, and so it's a bit crooked, and it's a bit wrong, and it's a bit like not perfect, and that is the perfect thing that you want to scan. Because if you would have done it from the beginning in CG, I actually think it would have been much, much harder, because then you go into the fact that you get CG involved, and then you get all through these versions and versions and versions. Usually CG already starts perfect anyway, because that's how it's a mathematical equation really that you're doing. So it's already like a perfect model inside a perfect 3D application with perfect lighting, and then you have to like break up the models. But then, no disrespect to the CG artists, but I just don't think the CG artists have the experience of a real production designer. The production designer, which is the kind of person, I've been on multiple sets on my life, and production designer is the kind of person on set that can do anything with a piece of gaffer tape and a marker, and they are solvers of problems, and they troubleshoot something into reality. Like, we're on set, oh, we need a door, and they grab a few things and here's a door, and they make one. And I think that craftsmanship that comes into those models and to those sets, with all the little if you look from the left or from the back, it looks wrong. But if you look just from the front, it looks fine. This is something that is very difficult to do in traditional CG because the 3D artists and the company is just too big. There's too many artists involved. There are too many layers of decision. There's too many supervisors. The whole thing just slows down by its own pipeline and the weight of the pipeline. And it just becomes so much easier to just do it and with a piece of wood, a piece of mark, a piece of paint, and then you're done. You did it, and then you can scan that. It's a brilliant way of doing it, and like you said, it's very normal, very typical. But I guess these days, not very well seen. I guess not a lot of people know that it's done like that.
Well, luckily, in a weird way, they were able to show that miniaturization breakdown to reveal that was done. What they've hidden is all the blue screen and extension work. There's blue screen work just in Barbie standing on her roof and waving, or down at the beach, because
there's shots like where you have just like 10% of the shot is there and the rest is blue. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, which is also like you're on a soundstage. It's not the world's, it's not as big as the world.
No, it's not, and that's not pretty.
This is, I guess, what we're getting at is there's like all the normal visual effects things were done on this film, yet they were hidden to some degree.
Yeah.
And it boggles the mind a little bit for a visual effects person because they're like, well, why? And we've kind of explained, I think, why the studio did it. And so that's the reason. Yeah. It's a bit of a shame because, and gosh, I guess the studio doesn't care. It made $1 billion. Yeah. So, but part of it is, I feel, coming back, Hugo, maybe to the conversations we had last year during the strikes, which is respect for the visual effects artists, right? You're not being allowed to talk about the work that you've done, and you're not being allowed to celebrate it. That's also one of the reasons I think we're upset about it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And which should have been celebrated because it is quite a nice achievement to pick up something like this with such extensive sets and then actually completely recreate it so well that no one even knows that it was done. It's like, that's the clever part of all of this because to this day, most people think they really had those sound stages and they really looked like that. And so that's really hats off to the incredible, talented artists that worked on this that actually can translate these amazing sculptures and sets from these very talented production designers into CG. And that's because you see, most people, we get caught up with this conversation. Oh, the studio is this studio that. But in reality, the crew itself, they respect each other really well. And the production design loves the CG department. The CG department loves the production design. And they work together really well. And they know exactly what they're doing, both of them. And they share assets and they help inside scans. Man, some of the times I've been supervising on set, the most helpful people on set for me have always been the production design people. They're so helpful and they're always ready to chip in and try to sort out something or help the VFX in any way, shape, or possible. So I think this fight is actually not even present on set, and it's not even present on a production itself when they're actually doing it. I think this fight is happening in marketing. It's really not even... It's when they present the final product and the way that they're then deciding. And then, of course, there's people that make these decisions, which are not probably even involved on the actual creative day-to-day. So there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of like a lot of different moving parts on this, So.
Yeah. Just to pick up on one thing you said, Barbie probably is one of the best invisible seamless effects films from recent times. Even though if you say, okay, you're like as if Barbie can drive down this whole a highway in the desert. Like, of course, that's visual effects. But as you say, given what information the public are given about how that was filmed, it's not actually clear how it was executed, which is, in one way, a great magic trick.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wow, was that sort of film practically, was that visual effects? It's almost like Warner Brothers has almost achieved its point, right? by doing that. But I'm going to say that's actually me also giving tribute to Framestore and the other visual effects shops.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Glenn Pratt, because it's not always obvious how these things are done. And, only when you see the breakdowns can you see some of the intricate little additions made. Like, I'll give you one example. There's a couple of mermaids that appear in the film.
Yeah, that's right.
One of them's Dua Lipa. Like, I learned during one of my conversations with Glenn that they had to replace her wig, because which happens on films, by the way, all the time. It's kind of one of these beauty effects or a beauty work, and like no one knows that. And that's awesome that no one knows. Yeah. But that's a classic example of the invisible effects work.
Well, talking about those mermaids, it's really fascinating also that you see them on set a lot on these Blu-ray featurettes, and they're actually on set, and they were there on the beach, and they have like a full Styrofoam made set, but they ended up shooting them in blue screen separately and then compositing them in. And I'm assuming that's a performance thing. Maybe they weren't happy with the performance. They had to reshoot it or do a B-roll side, because it would probably be possible to shoot it for real on the set. I don't really think... So there's a lot of that as well on the film. A lot of things that are completely invisible and completely switched around, and you don't even notice. Yeah. Even people on the background, people that they've replaced and put in and put out. And it's fascinating to see.
It is really interesting, isn't it? Some of that blue screen shooting can be that Dua Lipa wasn't available for the principal photography, so she shot in LA while this is filmed in London.
Could be.
So things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is also normal big studio filmmaking.
I know. I think I guess it breaks my heart that they didn't get nominated, because I do think it is a shame, because the film is nominated for so many Oscars, so many things. It is a shame that Margot Robbie wasn't nominated, but, that's a shame. There's only 5 slots, so it's difficult, of course. And not mention is nominated for Best Movie, which is very rare that a comedy, it's not really just a comedy, but it is a comedy, in fact. It is really funny. So it's very rare the comedy gets nominated. So it is a shame for the people that worked and the companies that worked that they didn't get nominated, both on the visual effects and also on the Oscars, and even on the BAFTAs as well. They didn't get nominated on any of the places, and must really hurt a little bit. And we'll never know. Maybe even if all the breakdowns would come out, maybe it would not get nominated, because it was an incredibly competitive year. So it's difficult. Even if everything came out, maybe it wasn't going to be nominated anyway, because the same thing happened to Poor Things. Poor Things also has a lot of nominations, and they also didn't get the visual effects nomination, although the breakdowns were out. So I think not all of them.
Poor Things did win the BAFTA.
No, that's right.
Visual effects,
I'm talking about the Oscar. Yeah, I think that's yeah, you're right. The BAFTAs also recognized that film in a different way, which I thought it was brilliant. The Oscars, not so much, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it's too weird for the Oscars. Maybe the film is just too weird for the Oscars.
Yeah. The thing to say is that any Oscar nomination is not scientific. It's subjective and whatnot. What really is more interesting is, did the public get an opportunity to worship the work?
Yeah.
In the same way that some of these other films, which get to showcase their work, have been worshipped. Like, I think The Creator has been worshipped for its visual effects work, not necessarily as a film. Because there's some issues with the storytelling in The Creator, right?
Yeah. And the film was not really, people didn't really, picked it up. It wasn't, a huge success on the cinema.
No. And Fury Road is, again, my example for how you can have this thing happen to a film where it just gets extra experience and extra worshipped in terms of visual effects by people coming to see how much work was involved.
Yeah.
In that film. And that's what I was honestly hoping would happen a bit more with Barbie. But we've been worshipping it. I've been writing about it. I guess it is in a different way, but just not as widely as some other ones. Yeah.
No, but it's incredible work. And you've already talked about the miniatures, you already talked about the sets, but then like you said, with invisible work, there's then also an entire world of invisible visual effects that actually are done even on the sets themselves when they transition to the real world. When they are in between worlds, when you go through the car, the boat, the skidoo, and the bike and the rocket, and these kind of dioramas that they've created, which are brilliant. They're actually real. You see these rollers and pretending that it's the ocean, and you have like these. But if you look closely at the behind the scenes, there's a lot of parts that had to be replaced, and a lot of parts that had to be patched up. Especially, for example, on the rocket, there's like this mechanical arm. The motion control is there for the rocket to move up and down. And of course, they had to replace that entire thing so that the motion control wasn't there on the shoot, on the set. So there's a lot of invisible work there as well. And then
just on that, Hugo, I was talking to Glenn about that, and he was saying that at one point Greta was thinking, let's keep those artifacts in, like wires, on when they're in space or something like that. And I think the idea is because it's meant to look fake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's meant to be a silly.
Oh, you just reminded me as well of the one of the most invisible VFX that exists on the film is the wires when Margot Robbie is dropping down from the ceiling from the building. These huge wires that she then drops into the car, and then the car drives away. Oh my God, the wires are like in front of the face, in front of the hair, moving around like this. Someone had to painstakingly paint Margot's face every frame to try to remove those wires. It is insane work.
It's the kind of conversation you and I want to have, but I can also, I'm not coming round to the studio point of view, but it is the reason why they don't always want that stuff discussed. And we talked about this a bit with Oppenheimer about what Chris Nolan wants discussed. But Framestore did a ridiculous amount of work pre-planning that wire shot from the roof to the car, and then, overseeing the visual effects work for it. Who knows if part of her dress is also replaced or CG? We just don't know. It's again seamless work, but just because of this whole thing about not showing too much, we'll never quite know how that wire work was actually done or erased. Maybe Margot's dress is a bit CG as well, but we'll never really know.
Well, we know that some of it is, like, I've had conversations with people that there are sections of it, but again, it's only sections, patches, things that had to be removed. Any of the film would have been normal, and if they would have been more transparent with the behind the scenes, I wouldn't even care about those things. But it's just because the transparency wasn't really there. I mean, we can't talk about every single VFX, but then, just to really do a quick shout out for the UPP's work, like, there's also an entire world of VFX that is invisible, that is done on the real world, where you have a full CG car on the which I still don't understand why they replaced the car. Rumors is that it was a product placement, but I still don't really completely understand why they replaced the car. But it is seamless. Man, when you watch the movie, did you ever thought that car was CG? Man, not in a million years.
No,
not in a million years.
It was really well done by UPP, and it may well not have been product placement, but just they shot with the wrong car.
Could be.
Maybe that just wasn't the right car for the family. Things like that literally do get changed for that reason.
Could be. But it's seamless. I didn't even thought about it being in CG. I didn't even until that showreel was out, I would never in a million years think that car was CG. And it's a lot of shots. It's on a lot of shots. There's an entire chase sequence, and also interaction with them with the belt and getting into the car, out of the car, closing doors, opening doors. It is complex, very complex work.
Yes, I also like some really seamless work that was done from, say, the Venice beach coming and going to the travelogues diorama scenes. Like, sometimes you're at Venice Beach, like in the real world, in our world, and the travelogue diorama is actually part of the real world, as if it's being pulled away by stagehands. But that's visual effects, right? That's not like a real set. And I think it's just another kind of whimsical, playful side of Barbie's production design, which also happens to use visual effects. And like, so just forget about the stuff we've talked about, how weird it is that they haven't allowed to talk about it. The actual thinking behind it is super cool.
Yeah, it is. And I think everyone involved should be really proud of what they've done. And it's just like, this film is gonna carry for years to come, and it's gonna really like survive the test of time because it's a really good film. And again, because the CG is seamless, no one's ever gonna think, oh, that's CG, because you'll never notice it. And that's the thing. So yeah, I think it's a lot to talk about, as always. We always have too much to talk about on the episodes, like as usual.
Well, thanks for staying with us, everybody, as we raved and ranted about this. Although, of course, we're praising the incredible visual effects work done in the film. Hugo, that's been a lot of fun. I think I'll never forget your pink top and your pink room. Great work on the sparkles there.
I know. Like I am still in Barbie land right now. Still in Barbie land and having I did a Hugo's Desk t-shirt just in purpose for this episode. Okay. Just want everyone to know that it's been done in purpose. No, I'm kidding. It wasn't done in purpose.
Love it.
But it could have been. What a great story that would have been.
That's really fun.
Cool.
Well, thanks everyone for watching. And once again, shout out to our sponsors, Patreon members, and people who follow us on YouTube and social media. Hugo, goodbye for now.
Bye. Bye, Barbie.
Bye, Ken.